Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40k Universe. I am your host Gershwin and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about Space Marine chapters as we take on another viewer request, the Flesh Terrors, one of my favorite successor chapters as of making of this video. If you guys have any other suggestions for Space Marine chapters, please comment down below, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe because we put out new Warhammer 40k lore videos every single day. With that said, let's get into 40 facts about Flesh Terrors. The Flesh Terrors is the smallest second founding successor chapter of the Blood Angels, numbering only 4 full companies of Astartes. They are known for their bloodthirsty nature in battle, bad temper, and fear for flaws like the Black Rage and the Red Thirst that they carry within their gene seed. The Flesh Terrors have a two-tone color scheme, with crimson red covering the torso, arms, and legs of their power armor, while the helmet, shoulder, and backpack are a jet black. Like their predecessors, the Blood Angels, the Flesh Terrors adhere to a strict heraldry system, allowing them to recognize what company and squad any given battle belongs to at a glance. The advantage of such swift recognition amid the madness of battle are obvious. More than this, however, the sons of Sanguinius revere their heraldry and bear these markings as badges of pride. The Flesh Terrors chapter badge is a circular white saw blade with a crimson blood droplet at its center. The blade is centered on a field of black. Like the Blood Angels, the Flesh Terrors use variations of the blood droplet to denote company, even though their companies are often divided into ad hoc battle groups. The Flesh Terrors chapter was created in the 31st millennium after the Primarch of the Ultramarines, Guilliman, who led the reformation sweeping the Imperium after the Horus Heresy, determining that all existing Space Marine legions would be broken up into 1,000-man chapters so that no single military commander could ever again wield the dangerous power of an entire Astarte legion. This event is known as the Second Founding, and the Flesh Terrors were one of the chapters formed from the Blood Angels Legion, even as they continued to grieve for their fallen Primarch, Sanguinius, who had been slain by Horus at the climax of the Battle of Terra. When the Flesh Terrors chapter was brought into being during the Second Founding, Captain Nasir Amit, the commander of the Blood Angel Legion's 5th Company, was chosen to be its first chapter master. Of all the Legion's captains, Amit's reputation and that of his company was the most bloodthirsty. More than once the 5th Company had been called to censure by Sanguinius for their zeal in pursuing enemy forces. It was not for nothing that the outspoken officer had earned the nickname the Flesh Terror, and rather than deny the epithet, he made it his own. Amit had a predatory way about him, a sense of aggression barely held in check, that was often unleashed in full many times on the field of battle throughout the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. Like their commander, the Battle Brothers of the 5th Company were known to bear bolters and flailing knives in battle. After their official formation, the Flesh Terrors immediately left Terra to embark upon a new Imperial crusade to eliminate the traitor forces still loyal to Horus, as well as continue to purge chaotic infestations from Imperial worlds during the period known as the Great Scouring. The Flesh Terrors were assigned the battle barge Victus from their former legion, which served as their mobile fortress monastery for the next 3,000 standard years. The Flesh Terrors' reputation for savagery in battle was soon well known, and so the terrible flaws of the 9th Legion's genetic legacy must have asserted themselves very soon after the death of the Blood Angels Primarch Sanguinius. During this time, these Space Marines remained constantly on crusade, destroying any heretics whose paths they crossed. Those they encountered, they defeated. Those they defeated, they utterly annihilated, leaving no stone left unturned and no living being left to continue any heresy. Some rumors circulated of their brutality, even going so far as reaching the High Lords of Terra. However, their degree of success in achieving compliancy were nearly unparalleled. During this period of strife, as the Imperium recovered from Horus's treachery, results were valued far more than technique. As such, there were no investigations into the savage rumors that accompanied the Flesh Terrors' implacable advance. Over time, the Flesh Terrors continued to earn a reputation for savagery. These volatile Space Marines reveled in each assault action and continued to cause unacceptable levels of collateral damage. Some reports indicated that during their mad frenzies, Flesh Terrors continued their battle actions against Allied forces or even against the innocents who they were sent to protect. Their reputation for such savagery had spread through millennia, to the extent that some forces, including a few Space Marine chapters, are no longer willing to engage in Allied missions with members of the Flesh Terrors. In spite of this fact, there are a number of instances where the Flesh Terrors have worked in battle zones with other chapters. On a number of occasions, these include other chapters that were known to be part of the Blood Angels lineage. The Flesh Terrors fall prey to the curse of the Black Rage far more often than members of any other chapter descended from Sanguinius's lineage. This is believed to be due to a mutation in their gene seed, but their combat doctrines and military philosophy may also influence the frequency of this tragic psychogenetic syndrome. At the time of their formation, the Flesh Terrors chapter discontinued the Blood Angels' practice of assimilating blood transfusions during the neophyte's initiation, using the artifact known as the Red Grail. Some Imperial savants speculate that this practice could have contributed to the horrific mutation. When Flesh Terror Battle Brothers show the characteristic signs that they are falling prey to the tragic flaw, they are inducted into the Death Company and isolated from their healthier brethren. These Space Marines continue their service under the supervision of a High Chaplain of the Death Company, residing in their Fortress Monastery's isolated Tower of the Lost when not called to battle. For over 20 centuries after their founding, the Flesh Terrors were a mobile, crusading chapter. Eventually, however, the chapter chose to establish a permanent fortress monastery upon a brutal death world located deep in the galaxy's west. They call it Cretacia, from the ancient Bala Sanskrit meaning birth of wrath. Cretacia was home to a small population of feral humans whose genes were pure, and who had developed a remarkable Neolithic warrior culture and produced strong and able Flesh Terror recruits. The chapter had great need of this easy supply of recruits, for as the centuries passed, the flaw in the Flesh Terror's gene seed gradually worsened, and few Flesh Terror Space Marines were able to avoid succumbing to the Black Rage after more than 200 standard years. By the end of the 41st millennium, the Flesh Terrors were able to deploy only 4 full combat-ready companies, and the degradation of their gene seed seemed to be only increasing, making it likely that unless a remedy can be found, the chapter will ultimately cease to exist. The high incidence of the Black Rage in the chapter has led the Inquisition to question the purity of the Flesh Terrors on multiple occasions, and many other Space Marine chapters refuse to fight alongside the Flesh Terrors because of their reputation for uncontrolled savagery and genetic corruption, as well as the fear that their bloodlust might be infectious. Since the terrible Cauldron Massacre of the late 36th millennium, the chapter has essentially remained under the watchful eye of the Ordo Hereticus. In the year 998 of the 41st millennium, news reached Baal that the Krypton Shield, the shield world of the Kryptis system, which stood as the bastion of the Imperium, was endangered by a large tendril of High Fleet Leviathan reaching out toward the system, and soon every planet of Kryptis felt the talon of the Great Devourer. Knowing that the consumption of the Kryptis system would open the floodgates for an unstoppable Tyranid invasion of Baal, Lord Commander Dante took action. The Flesh Terrors were the first of the Blood Angel successor chapters to heed Dante's call, and quickly joined their parent chapter in the defense of Baal and the surrounding sector. Part of a grand alliance of the Blood Angel successor chapter, they had taken their place in a thin crimson line standing against the Tyranids. The chapter sought redemption for its many past misdeeds, and the chapter master, Gabriel Seth, hoped that they might yet bring honor to their dying chapter, tempering their red thirst in the blood of their enemies. Many chapters have become wary of the Flesh Terrors, with their dire reputation for unrestrained carnage and their excess of violence. However, to Dante, the flesh terrors were still his brothers, born of the blood of Sanguinius, and worthy allies in a war against the hive mind. The fact that Seth led the flesh terrors to the Cryptis system in such great strength speaks volume about the bond between his chapter and the Blood Angels. There are scarcely 400 flesh terrors left, and at the time of the Krypton War, more than half of the chapter's numbers, some 5 under-strength companies, were deployed in the war zones of Armageddon. Even so, Seth mustered much of what remained for the defense of Bao and its nearby sectors, clinging to the belief that only through blood of their foes and the manner of their death could their chapter be redeemed. However, this righteous intention would be set against the flesh terror's own dark nature, as they suffer the flaws of these gene seeds even more than the blood angels themselves. Foremost of these flaws is the red thirst, a bloodlust that takes the flesh terror's battle brothers in the heat of battle and makes them mindless killers. It is this flaw that has given them a dire reputation for carnage, and one that continues to define them. Many worlds have lived to regret the coming of the chapter, for reckless destruction and rivers of blood and madness they have spilled in the throes of their battle madness has sometimes been worse than the predation of their foe. The flesh terrors would prove their reputation for ferociousness many times over on the battlefield of Lysios, the Space Marines venting their fury upon the Tyranids in a maelstrom of blood. Supported by the chapter's finest war machines, there would be a horrific war of annihilation upon which they would seek to quench their red thirst. At the head of a mighty strike force that comprised the 1st and 2nd companies of the Blood Angels, Brother Corbulo, Captain Carlian, Chief Librarian Mephiston, and the bulk of Gabriel Set's flesh terrors, Dante struck out for the Cryptis system. And those were 40 facts about the flesh terrors. Honestly, I think this is one of my favorite successor chapters of all times. The more I read on these guys, the more awesome it gets. And of course, there's going to be more lore videos to come. So subscribe to the channel. And like I said, I really regret not starting a Flesh Terrors army. Maybe in the future, once I'm done with my Imperial Fist, I'll start a Flesh Terrors army, because they are pretty badass. But we'll see. Comment down below, let me know what other chapters you guys want us to create a video for. And of course, guys, thank you so much for liking, commenting, and sharing. If you want to support us a little bit more, jump on over to Patreon. A simple $1 a month helps us create more videos for you guys. And if you can't support us with $1 a month, that's fine. We completely understand, just simply by liking, commenting, and sharing. And don't forget to hit the little notification button. It's the little bell icon right next to subscribe. That helps us out too, and we can continue to put out more Warhammer 40k content for you guys. With that said, I'll see you tomorrow. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.